The rain that night wasn't just falling, it was attacking the city in sheets, turning every street into a blur of trembling reflections. The taxi windows were fogged from the warmth inside, mixing with the icy air outside, and I kept wiping them with the sleeve of my jacket just to catch a glimpse of where we were. Streetlights stretched into long, ghostly lines on the glass, like the city was melting. I leaned forward, squinting at my phone. The little blue dot blinked on the map, telling me I was only a few meters away from the building I needed. "You can drop me here," I said casually, tapping the screen. The driver didn't respond. He didn't nod. He didn't even glance back at me in the mirror. His face, normally calm in the short time I'd been riding with him, was suddenly tense, jaw locked, eyes darting left and right at every intersection. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles had drained of all color. I frowned, wondering if he'd even heard me over the angry hiss of the rain. "Sir, you can stop now," I repeated, a little louder. This time, he reacted, but not the way I expected. He slammed one hand down on the center console as if stopping me from reaching for the door. His voice shot through the car like a warning siren. "Don't get out here!" he barked. I froze instantly, my breath caught in my throat. The intensity in his tone hit me in a place deeper than fear. It hit instinct. Something primal inside me told me not to move. The car rolled forward another meter, windshield wipers slashing across the glass like frantic hands. "What do you mean?" I whispered, leaning back slowly. For a second his eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Those eyes were not angry. They were terrified. Truly, bone-deep terrified. His pupils were blown wide, reflecting the neon red glow of a nearby sign. He looked like a man who had seen something he couldn't explain. "Trust me," he said, voice cracking. "Just don't open the door. Not here, not now." My heart hammered against my ribs. The rain outside suddenly seemed louder, as if the storm itself wanted to drown out whatever was happening inside the taxi. I sat there speechless, hands hovering above my bag like I wasn't sure whether to hold it, unzip it, or use it as a shield. "Why?" I breathed. "What's going on?" He didn't answer. He kept checking his mirrors, his shoulders trembling slightly. Every muscle in his body looked coiled, like he was waiting for something to appear out of the shadows. The city around us seemed to hold its breath. People hurried under umbrellas, cars honked distantly, but inside the taxi, everything was suffocatingly still. Rain streaked down his windows in long, frantic rivers, distorting the outside world. But even through the distortion, I noticed something. A group of figures across the street, standing too still, watching. Their silhouettes were barely distinguishable in the storm, but their heads were unmistakably turned toward the taxi. "Who are they?" whispered, leaning closer to the glass. The driver sucked in a sharp breath. "Sit back," he urged, voice almost pleading now. "Please, don't let them see your face." The fear in his voice chilled me more than the storm outside. I didn't understand any of it, but his desperation didn't feel like the desperation of someone threatening me. It felt like the desperation of someone trying to protect me. I sank into my seat slowly, mind spinning with confusion. My fingers trembled around the edge of my jacket. Something about this place, this exact spot, was wrong. Every instinct screamed it. The driver swallowed hard, took a shaky breath, and pressed his foot on the accelerator just as the taxi's engine sputtered. "Not now," he muttered through clenched teeth. "Come on, not now." But it was too late. In the very next second, the darkness around us exploded into blinding flashes of blue and red. Sirens roared, tires screeched, shadows ran toward us. And the taxi was instantly engulfed by a swarm of police vehicles, their lights slicing through the storm like knives. Officers poured out, weapons raised, voices booming over the thunder. I didn't even have time to scream. One moment, it was just me and the trembling driver inside a fogged-up car. The next moment, the entire world had collapsed around us in a storm of orders, lights, and chaos. And I still had no idea why. The moment the police lights burst through the darkness, everything inside the taxi unraveled at once. The sirens didn't just scream. They pierced, vibrating through the metal frame, shaking the air, rattling my bones. I pressed myself back against the seat, fingers digging into the upholstery as panic tore through me, raw and instinctive. Outside, officers moved like shadows sharpened by lightning, fast, aggressive, purposeful. Their flashlights flicked across the windows in harsh, blinding strokes, turning the inside of the car into a stutter of light and darkness, like the world was blinking violently. The driver lifted both hands slowly, shaking uncontrollably. His eyes were squeezed shut. His chest heaved. "Don't move," he whispered. "Please don't move." But everything inside me wanted to move, wanted to run, wanted to scream. The fear buzzing under my skin felt like electricity, itching, burning, urging me to do something, anything, but my body refused to obey. I was frozen between instinct and shock, caught in a reality I couldn't understand. Suddenly, a heavy fist pounded on the roof. Another rapped sharply against the window. Flashlights ached into my eyes, forcing me to shield my face. "Driver, hands where we can see them! Passenger, step out slowly, now! Don't make any sudden movements." Their commands collided with each other, overlapping, swelling, overwhelming. My heart thundered so violently that I didn't know how it hadn't shattered. Every second stretched, thick and suffocating, as though time itself was afraid to move forward. Before I could even decide whether to comply, the door on my side was yanked open. Rain slashed across my skin like icy blades. The shock of the cold nearly stole the breath from my lungs. A pair of hands, rough, strong, grabbed my wrists and pulled me out of the taxi with a force that sent my balance spinning. My feet slipped on the slick pavement, and I stumbled forward. The officer didn't slow down. He turned me around and pushed me toward the beams of headlights illuminating the street. "Keep your hands where we can see them. Spread your feet. Do not resist." The shout of commands came from everywhere. From my left, from behind, from above the drowning roar of the storm. I swallowed hard, chest tightening. "I haven't done anything," I cried, but my voice was swallowed instantly by the wind and sirens. Water drenched my hair, my clothes, my face. Raindrops streamed down my skin, mixing with the hot sting of fear that threatened to break me from the inside. I blinked hard, trying to focus, but all I could see were silhouettes and shadows. Officers moving, lights flickering, weapons pointed. They weren't just treating this like a traffic stop. They were treating it like a manhunt, like they'd been waiting for this exact moment. I turned my head to the side, desperate to see the driver. He was still in the front seat, hands trembling against the steering wheel, his face pale, eyes wide with a strange mix of fear and acceptance. An officer stepped forward, pointed directly at him and shouted, "Step out of the vehicle!" But he didn't move. He stared ahead, chest rising and falling rapidly, rain dripping from his hairline as the storm poured into the car through the open doors. The officer closest to me murmured into his radio, "We have them. Confirm identities." Them, plural. They thought I was part of something dangerous. My stomach sank so sharply I felt dizzy. The officer gripping my arms tightened his hold. "Ma'am, for your safety, stay still," he said, though his tone was far from soothing. "For my safety," I choked. "What's going on?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked past me, eyes narrowing. I followed his gaze, and the world seemed to tilt sideways. Through the blur of rain and flashlight beams, I saw more officers sprinting toward us from both ends of the street. They weren't slowing down. They weren't cautious. They were running like they were seconds away from catching something deadly. Their boots splashed through puddles. Their radios cracked with frantic static. Their hands gripped weapons so tightly they shook. The entire street was blocked off. Police vehicles formed a cage around us. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The storm raged on, drowning the city in noise and motion, but somehow everything around me felt muted, like I was watching myself from underwater. My eyes darted back to the driver. He turned his head toward me, slow, helpless, almost apologetic. Then he whispered something I could barely hear over the thunder. "I'm sorry." Before I could ask why, everything erupted at once. Officers shouting, lights flashing brighter, hands grabbing both of us with new urgency. In that storm-lashed chaos, one terrifying truth hit me like a punch to the chest. This wasn't a mistake. This was something much bigger, and the driver knew it long before I did. The judge's gavel struck sharply, echoing through the courtroom like a warning. My daughter, still clutching her tablet, stood with trembling hands. For a moment, no one breathed. Even my ex-husband, usually arrogant and unshakable, shifted uneasily in his seat as whispers rippled through the rows of spectators. I could see the battle inside her, fear, shame, courage, all fighting for control. She bit her lip, glanced at me, then at the judge, as if silently asking for permission to reveal a truth she had carried for too long. "Your Honor," she said, her voice quivering but determined, "I want to show something." The judge frowned slightly but nodded. "Proceed." My ex-husband suddenly leaned forward. "This is unnecessary. She's a child. Sit down," the judge commanded, and he fell silent, though his jaw tightened like a trap ready to snap. My daughter walked toward the center of the courtroom, her steps small but deliberate. She connected her tablet to the court screen with hesitant fingers. I saw her shoulders rise and fall with a shaky breath before she pressed play. The room dimmed slightly as the video appeared, and then the truth exploded into the open. It was a recording, shaky, recorded through a barely cracked door. The camera captured my ex-husband pacing in his office, red-faced and furious, shouting words that made my stomach twist. "She doesn't deserve anything. I'll make the court believe she's unstable. After that, I'll take the house, the accounts, everything. She'll walk away with nothing." My daughter's quiet sniffle filled the courtroom as she watched her father's betrayal replay on the giant screen. Another voice entered the frame, a woman's laugh. The same woman he had sworn he barely knew. "You're cruel," she said, almost admiring him. He laughed. "Cruel? No, smart." Gasps erupted around us. The judge's expression hardened instantly. The lawyers froze. And my ex-husband looked as if the ground beneath him had vanished. My daughter lowered her eyes, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She whispered, almost to herself, "I didn't want Mommy to lose everything, so I saved this." I felt my heart crack and heal at the same time, because in that moment, the world finally saw the truth he spent years hiding. The judge leaned back slowly, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Even without speaking, his posture radiated disapproval so intense it felt like a storm settling over the courtroom. All eyes shifted toward my ex-husband, who for the first time in years looked genuinely afraid. "Mr. Hale," the judge said, voice low and edged with authority, "care to explain this?" My ex-husband opened his mouth, but the words tangled, together uselessly. It was taken out of context. My daughter, she doesn't understand." "Enough," the judge's voice boomed, slamming down like lightning. He turned to the bailiff. "Stop the video and replay the last minute." The room fell into darkness again as the woman's laughter echoed from the speakers. The judge's eyes narrowed at every word. When the lights returned, my ex-husband didn't look like a confident businessman anymore. He looked like a cornered animal, sweating, pale, unable to hide his panic. His lawyer whispered frantically to him, but he shook his head, lost, confused, undone. My daughter stood near me now, clinging to my sleeve. I wrapped an arm around her, feeling the tremors running through her small body. I leaned down and whispered, "You were so brave." She nodded, wiping a tear with the back of her hand. The judge sighed, a long, disappointed exhale. "This is not the behavior of a man seeking fairness. This is manipulation, deception, exploitation of the legal system." My ex-husband tried again, desperate. "She tricked me. She's doing this out of spite." The judge slammed the gavel. Silence. A hush swallowed the room. Then came the words that would change everything. "The court hereby dismisses your claims for full custody, property division, and financial control. Effective immediately, Mrs. Hale retains primary custody, the marital home, and full rights to her financial accounts." My breath caught. It felt unreal. After months of threats, insults, and mental warfare, justice finally stood beside me. My ex-husband stumbled back into his chair. Rage twisted across his face, but the power he once wielded had evaporated like smoke. And the judge wasn't finished. "As for you, young lady," he said, turning to my daughter. What you did took courage. She blinked up at him with wide, scared eyes. You helped this court uncover the truth your mother could not prove. Her lips trembled. I just wanted her to be safe. A soft murmur moved through the room. Sympathy, respect, admiration. The judge nodded firmly. You did the right thing. My daughter's tiny hand squeezed mine. I squeezed back, finally able to breathe. And in that quiet, powerful moment, I understood something. The truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes. It comes from the trembling voice of a child fighting for her mother. When the hearing finally ended, the courtroom emptied slowly, like everyone was still processing what they had witnessed. My ex-husband remained seated, rigid and trembling, as though moving would make the judgment feel more real. His lawyer tried to speak to him, but he brushed the man off with a lifeless wave. He had lost the battle he thought he could never lose. I walked out holding my daughter's hand, and for the first time in months, the air outside didn't feel heavy. It felt clean, sharp, almost new. My daughter exhaled shakily, as if she'd been holding her breath the entire time. Mom, she whispered, did I mess everything up? Are you mad at me? I stopped immediately. Kneeling in front of her, I cupped her face gently. Mad at you, sweetheart? You saved me. You saved us. Her eyes filled again, but this time with relief, not fear. She leaned into my embrace, and I felt her heartbeat slow against my shoulder. But before we could take another step, the heavy courthouse doors burst open behind us. My ex-husband stumbled out, anger burning beneath his defeated expression. You turned her against me, he shouted across the marble steps, pointing an accusing finger at me, then at our daughter. This isn't over! People turned to stare. My daughter froze, shrinking slightly behind me. I felt a familiar rush of fear, but it did not own me anymore. I straightened. She turned against your lies, I said calmly. There's a difference. The fury in his eyes cracked, replaced by something hollow. Fear, maybe, or the realization that he no longer had control over anything. He took one unstable step toward us, but a bailiff appeared behind him instantly. Sir, I suggest you leave, the bailiff warned. My ex-husband glared at me one last time, his face twisted by the weight of a downfall he had built with his own hands. Then he turned away, defeated, shoulders sunken, a man stripped of the illusion of power. I exhaled slowly. My daughter intertwined her fingers with mine. We walked toward the parking lot, each step lighter than the last. It felt like sunlight was finding us again, piece by piece. My daughter's small voice broke the silence. Are we safe now? I looked at her brave little face, at the honesty in her eyes. Yes, I said softly. We are. She gave a small smile, the first real one in a long time. Once in the car, she climbed into the back seat and hugged her backpack to her chest. Mom? Yes, sweetheart? Do you think Grandpa would be proud of me? The question hit me deeper than she knew. I turned slightly in my seat and smiled at her reflection in the rearview mirror. He would be proud of you, I said, voice thick with emotion, more than you can imagine. As I started the engine, I felt something shift inside me, something strong, steady, unbreakable. The storm we had lived through was over, and though the road ahead wouldn't be simple, we were free, truly free. Behind us, the courthouse stood tall and silent, and in front of us stretched a future my ex-husband no longer controlled. For the first time in a long time, the world belonged to us again, and we were ready to step into it together.